Hello, salam, shalom, namaste, sasrikal, aloha, hola, ciao, bonjour, buna, privyet, mabuhay, and jean dobre. It's really, really good to be with you again, and I know you'll be so happy you've joined us today because we have a very special guest with us, and it's Aubin LaBrosse, who is the Chief Rainbow Magician at Rainbow Magic. That is so cool. Welcome, Aubin.
Hi, Samia. So nice to be here. So nice to meet you. It's been great.
Yes. And Aubin, will you please tell us more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I am a rainbow magician. I have had a very fun life, a very interesting one for sure. And in 2021, I had a spiritual awakening. So I've been doing it for about 4 years now. And Rainbow Magic is a custom healing modality that I've downloaded that's been basically a fusion of all of the things I've learned. Um, but basically, it's a one-stop shop for clearing up belief systems, calming down mental chatter, helping out the psyche, sort of healing the energy body in different ways, blocks in the chakras, and really just focusing on how to get more of what you want out of life. When I first awakened and I was trying to figure out what this was, I literally asked Source, like, what is this called? And they told me rainbow magic. And the reason they said is because you help people get to the pot of gold at the end of their rainbows, like the one kind of major thing that maybe we want in our lives. And so I just kind of took that and ran with it. And it's been a 4 year journey since of, deepening the practice and learning how to use it and scaling it out and making a business out of it and all that. So that's what I do these days.
Yay, I love that. I love that. And I love that um, you are continuing to learn and grow in your journey. So you're helping other people and at the same time you're continuing to learn and grow. And that is so awesome and amazing. And I love it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I definitely have been a lifelong student. I've always just been that way. And, I know that I don't know everything and I still learn. Like my most recent discovery was the compassion key modality and karmic clearing and like learning that the karmic layer was real. And then now I'm studying with a guy by the name of Ken Stone who focuses on the embodiment of the soul and what it means to have your soul actually be in your body. Because a lot of us are often chasing these disembodied experiences. Like we want to meditate or we want to go to Vipassana or we want to like get out of the body to have the soul experience. But a lot of the mentors that I'm studying and my own experience from my own journey is the importance of having the soul be in the body, like be fully embodied with your soul in the human experience. So that's
Yes.
kind of the avenue that I'm studying and learning from now.
Yeah. I'd love to dig deeper into that with you, but before we get into this compassion key level of things, can you tell me a little bit more about the other levels or layers? I've heard you talk about the 4 layers that we need to work on for healing, if I'm remembering correctly. So just that way we can get a better sense of the context within which
Yeah,
we work. Hey, thanks for tuning into this episode. Hope you're getting value out of it. For your information, this episode has been sponsored by the Happiness 101 program. Are you a change maker, coach, trainer, or healer? Are chains of fear holding you back from making the impact and income you desire? Using a unique combination of positive psychology and the spiritual wisdom of our most effective change makers, the Happiness 101 program helps you break through your limiting beliefs and manifest the abundance and success you desire with fun and ease. Interested? Book a free Happiness 101 exploration call with me, your happiness expert, Samia Bano. Just use my online calendar link in the show notes. Now, back to the show.
Absolutely, yeah. So I have discovered in my own like journey going through it forward that there are essentially four layers of healing that a human can do. The first one that's always the loudest is our conscious thoughts,
Mm,
right? Like what's actually happening at the top level of your conscious thoughts in your brain. And a lot of people will do affirmations for this or, focus on the positive. That's where, focus on what you want, not what you don't comes from, right?
mhm.
Um, and it sort of boils down to, what you focus on expands is a good adage from there. Like if you're constantly focusing on negative things, those thoughts get bigger, right? That's where more fear, more anxiety, etc. comes from. But if you have trouble, like I always did, if you have trouble, you know, marshaling your thoughts and organizing them and getting them to do what you want, well, then what do you do about that?
Yeah.
Well, so then I discovered the subconscious mind, obviously, and, belief systems. And I found certain tools to move and shift different belief systems because it turns out that whatever you put after I am, you get.
Mm,
So if you think I am amazing, I am awesome, I can do this, that's what you'll get. If you think I am broken, I am terrible, I am unlovable, all of these things from, negative upbringing and conditioning, that's what you'll get. And so it wasn't until about July of 2020 I found this amazing uh, team in practice called MindFix, where essentially you could identify a belief statement, an I am statement that you no longer wanted, and within about 20 minutes of Socratic inquiry, it wasn't therapy, it was just questioning the right kinds of questions. Um, you can take a person through a process that will actually remove that belief, will delete it from their experience. And the first one that I ever had facilitated for me in this way was I am unlovable. And it turns out, obviously, that's a pretty big one. And when you reverse it, when you let it go, the love can actually get in. And so when I am unlovable was no longer true for me, and love started pouring into my life everywhere, it was kind of like every area of my life lit on fire,
yeah.
right? And I have some pretty solid ADHD, but I've turned it into a superpower. And the reason I love it now is because when I find a healing modality that works for me, I just go all in. I go hyper focus on it. So when that belief was removed and I knew that the MindFix team and the process could help me, I basically went all in on doing it for about 2.5 years and removed probably 50 or 100, negative beliefs, if not more, right? And then that's essentially from everything I had done what led to the spiritual awakening. There was another modality in there also that I told you about called the Sedona method, which was really just sitting with my emotions and letting them be, right? Because a lot of us are in resistance all the time. We
Yeah.
don't want to feel our anger. We don't want to feel our fear. We don't want to feel our sadness. And so the Sedona method taught me to just witness, to sit and be present with my emotional state. And
Mm,
that was huge too, because it turns out that if you do it and you do it in earnest, meaning actually do it without any attachment to the emotions, they move.
yeah.
Emotional experiences are like 120 seconds, usually. And so a lot of the suppression that we engage in, a lot of the I don't want to feel this is because we don't want to feel uncomfortable for like 2 minutes. But if we suppress, this is where Bessel van der Kolk comes in, body keeps the score. If we suppress rather than experiencing, then it stays with us, right? It sticks in the body and becomes a disease. It becomes a problem. It becomes an issue that we then have to excavate and find later because we have all these sort of unfinished emotional loops from being children and, whenever they happened, right? And so anyway, between the Sedona method and the mind fix stuff, that was what sort of cleared the vessel enough, if you will. I did Sedona for about 5 years with a men's group I was part of from like 2014 to 2019. And then MindFix was 2 years from 2020 to 2022. And in April of 21 was the MindFix event. It was a 3-day retreat where I had the Rainbow Magic Awakening. Um, and the way I kind of describe what actually happened that day, um, I sort of refer to it as removing the last cluster of beliefs that allowed me to come home. I don't remember specifically what the statements are anymore because that's part of the truth of deleting them is that they're gone. Um, but it was basically the ethos or the idea was that it wasn't safe to be in my body. And to that point before that, I had created this amazing life. I worked at Google, I worked at Facebook, I did all these things. And up to that time, it had been because I wanted this amazing looking resume so that I could have this resume that's as long as my arm that says, oh, look out here at all these awesome things that Aubin has done. Here's this whole list of, this receipt as long as his arm of all the stuff he's done. But that's so that you don't have to be here with him. You can be out there looking at his
Yeah.
experiences, you
Yeah.
know?
And it also connects with the belief of I'm not lovable, because when you think you're not lovable, and I've had that problem too. It's like you have a tendency to be like, okay, let me amass more credentials, more accomplishments, so then maybe I will become lovable. Maybe, then people will be just so amazed by my accomplishments and so forth that they will love me. But
Right.
it
Well,
doesn't
exactly.
help. It doesn't
It
really,
doesn't, no, it doesn't work like that,
yeah.
right? And so the cluster of beliefs was around it being actually safe to be in my body, like to be me.
Mhm.
It wasn't safe to be me up to that point. And when those beliefs were removed, there were like four of them, and we removed them in a span of maybe an hour, hour and a half, because it takes about 20 minutes to do one. So with four, it's like an hour and 20 or something. And um, so by the end, by the time they were removed, the only way I can explain it is I felt so grounded, I felt such a sense of here-ness in my body that the only way I can really explain it, and this is the way I do say what waking up feels like, the universe looked down at me and went, oh, he finally decided to live in his vessel. Now we can show him what he really wanted it all for, like what he really came for, and then that was the day, literally the day after I got some sleep and woke up, that was the day that rainbow magic happened. And in the very beginning, I only had this intuition. It started out as a really tiny seed of intuition.
Mm.
And the intuition I had was that I was with all these different people at this retreat, like 20 of us or so. And the universe, source, however you want to refer to it, showed me that I had a specific energy, a specific vibration for each person that I wanted them to focus on for the next like year or however long they wanted to. That was the extent of the rainbow magic that I got at first.
Mm.
And so I gave it to a lot of people, but one in particular was the one that helped me to keep going on the Rainbow Magic Path journey. Um, his name was Peter, my friend Peter Fermenti, and at the time, the energy that I had to give him was the vibration of fun. I said,
Mm.
Peter. He said, what? I said, your word of the year is fun. He said, what does that mean? I said, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that if you just focus on your fun for the next, however long you want to, and have more fun, your life will manifest in ways that you are not expecting or couldn't predict. Right. And he kind of looked at me funny. He didn't really know what to do with that. And I didn't really know what to do with it either, because it was just like a knowing and like oh, you must tell this person this thing, like kind of like a drive to do it.
Yeah.
Um, so I did. And then I let it go and I went on with my life, and I didn't really do anything with it or even know what to do because, back then I was still very analytical, very techy. I have a tech background, so I was very much like, kind of thinking I was crazy. And I got a call from Peter like, I don't know, 90 days later, 3, 4 months later, something like this. And he said, Aubin? And I said, what? He said, you're not going to believe this, but every time I come to a decision point, what I've been doing lately is I choose the one that I think will be more fun. I said, okay, so what's been happening? He said, well, I've manifested like crazy. I've made 6 figures. I've met women. I've traveled all over the world. His life really lit on some serious fire when he followed the vibration and the energy of fun. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's cool. So that was kind of like checkpoint number one, if you will, of like, okay, this thing, this rainbow magic thing that I can do is real.
Yeah.
And so on that, in that time, in that 3, 4 months is probably when I asked like, okay, what is this? And they kind of told me rainbow magic, and they showed me the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow and, this type of stuff. And I was like, okay, so now it's real. So then I went on the, more inner stillness, more meditation, just kind of went on my own journey of, okay, if it's real, okay, what do I do with it?
Yeah.
And they gave me enough of a framework to get it into an hour, right? To get it into a session, like you go to a healer, like a psychotherapy session or any kind of session. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's like an hour long. And so they gave me like the framework of what a rainbow magic session is. And so then all I could do from there was practice. And of course, when you're a new healer, or, I don't know if you had this experience, but I definitely did. If you have a new thing that's a new process that you don't know whether it works or not, the only way to do it is to give it away for free.
Yeah.
So I started doing that. I was like, hey, I've got these new things called rainbow sessions. Does anybody want to come and play? And from the same crowd, from the same event where it hatched at, that same 3 day, I found a different friend. Her name is Madeline. She's awesome. And she was the first one of the very first ones to raise her hand and say, I will have a rainbow session. Let's try it. And back then I was very focused on the core ethos, which is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So I started every session with that question.
Mm.
Okay, Madeline, what's your pot of gold at the end of the rainbow? What do you most want? And she said, okay, well, I have not really had any luck with men in about 20 years. And I'm getting older. I'm in my 40s, and I'd really like to start a family and have a baby. And, I want to have kids. And so that means I need to get married fairly quickly. And, that kind of thing of like this woman wants to start a family and she feels like she doesn't have much time. So I said, okay, let's play, let's practice, let's see what happens here. And so in the process of making it into a session, I was given really two pretty important insights about how manifestation works. The first is that manifestation is like a recipe.
Mm.
So like if you're trying to make French onion soup and you are missing the onions, you had better go to the grocery store or you're not actually going to make French onion soup. You can make something that's kind of like it, maybe, if you want. You could put something else in it. But without the onions, you're not going to have French onion soup. So they basically showed me the way in which a manifestation is a recipe for things, which means it has very specific ingredients. And then also, part two, once you have the recipe, they showed me how humans are essentially little conduits or little batteries, if you want, for cosmic energy and also earth energy, right? Earth energy below us and cosmic energy above us. And even if we have and we know and we are clear on all the components of the recipe, it doesn't mean that we're going to have the manifestation because the energy from source that is the full recipe may not make it all the way through the body. There can be energy blocks, there can be resistances, there can be chakra issues, there can be all sorts of things that can stop the energy of our pure perfect soul,
Yeah.
moving the recipe for what we want from source to earth.
Yes. And if you believe you're unlovable, that's a huge block.
Oh, absolutely. An enormous one, right? It means
Yeah.
that the universe can't give you anything, that you don't deserve any support. Like that one belief is like a giant house of cards that holds up all these other unsupportive beliefs, right?
Yep.
So that's why I try to go down to, because there's a couple of really deep, like core beliefs that I try to get at for people. Like I'm unlovable, I'm not enough, I can't trust myself, I can't trust other people. Like there are some really deep ones that are essentially the drivers of the rest of it.
Yeah.
Like you can pick the leaves, like, like I don't know. I don't like men or I don't like women or, some of this, but even that is usually lower down into I don't trust people, right? So it's like a hierarchy of beliefs. And if you take out one at level 2 or level 3 or level 4, it will make a difference for somebody. Any unsupported belief you remove will help. But when you can really go for some of these like deep core ones, like I'm unlovable or I don't trust myself or I can't have good things or I don't deserve you know, happiness or something really big like that,
Yeah.
you can really make a huge impact on somebody in like 20 to 25 minutes.
Right. Yeah, and I just wanted our audience to realize that, when we're talking about, having different kinds of blocks in our energy body and so forth, all of that, whatever we experience at an energy level also has physical manifestations. So it can manifest as particular thoughts, like we just mentioned, that you have that are reflective of these kinds of deep beliefs that you have somehow developed, like I'm unlovable, but it can also manifest in things like, oh my gosh, I have this disease or that pain in my body. It can manifest in other ways that are, like that you can actually see, feel, touch in some cases. So it's not like just like, in other words, when as you start to heal and you begin to unblock and the energy blocks and so forth, things begin to change in your life in ways that you can um, experience in a very concrete manner.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And that's what got me to my understanding of, the way I say it of the layers of healing, right? Because my first taste of that was back in the Sedona method days. Back then, I was very kind of bitter and angry and, just sad and depressed and really kind of low vibe a lot. I don't it's a spiritual bypass, so there's no low vibes aren't bad, but I was very, very bitter and angry. And when I found the tools to start kind of shifting that and digging through that and like my vibration literally raised, that's when I got my job at Google, and that's when I went from I had a recruiting job that was making 30K to it was two or three career moves. It wasn't just overnight, but I basically went from 30K to 210,000 in the span of a year. Like I literally watched my life take off and get higher and higher vibe because the vibes were changing. And I had studied enough Abraham Hicks to know that this was what was happening and literally watched my life, take off like a rocket just because I had processed some of my emotional stuff. And I'm like, okay, there really is something here to this. This is how manifestation actually works because I'm literally getting happier and watching my life like light itself on fire in all these amazing ways that I wanted, right? And what actually brought me to the knowing of belief systems is that I hit the ceiling of Sedona, where what was happening was I was letting go of everything all the time, but it would come back. It would be like, okay, I just did this last week, or I just did this 2 weeks ago, or I just did this last month, or whatever. And all these emotional holdings and stuff would come back. And it took me a while to figure out it was because of my belief systems. The belief systems essentially grow back the
Mm,
same emotions because even if you're releasing the emotions, you still believe you're unlovable. You
yeah,
still believe you don't deserve good things, right? And that belief is like a crystallization of energy. It's like a chunk of energy that's like crystallized in your experience and nothing can go around it, right?
right. And you know what you're sharing is like such a common aspect of experience. And like when we go on our healing journeys, and oftentimes, people get disappointed, and they think, oh, this means it just doesn't work or it's not working for me. But that's not it. The thing is that whatever these different methodologies are, they go so far and they serve a certain purpose, and they can and do help you in certain ways and to a certain extent, but you need to keep growing. You need to keep going deeper.
Well, exactly. And so that's what's led me to my understanding currently of the four different layers, right?
Yeah.
Because the first layer was emotions and the Sedona method and conscious thoughts. And then I was like, okay, what is this thing called the subconscious mind? And then the subconscious mind, once it was clear enough, was okay, that was the keys to open the energy body and rainbow magic and energy healing and what is a chakra and what do they all do? And I had to sit and learn all of that and sit with Gaia and, really relate to each one of the chakras and have my own awareness of how people are blocked and all this stuff so that I could help myself and them as well. And then, this is, you wanted to back up so that we could go forward. I mean, I didn't even finish the Madeline story, but the long and short of it is she had her session and, within 90 days, she was married and had her kid, right? She got everything she wanted from one rainbow session because she was the right kind of person to keep running that energy. We found the energy of her manifestation. We made sure she was a clear conduit for it. Steps one and two of my system, basically. And then once you do that, and once you practice that energy, she was willing to practice. I gave her some tools to practice. She was willing to actually practice for 3 months. And she literally left me a testimonial and said 90 days after working with Aubin, we were married and had our first kid on the way.
Yeah.
So, that's the kind of amazing, like that. Those are the kinds of things that no matter how analytical you are, you sit up and you're like, oh, okay, this is clearly real, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I really appreciate the framework that you have at the four levels and the insight that you give about going to the deeper layer or the deeper level. If you're struggling with, like you mentioned earlier, if you're struggling with your conscious thoughts and creating change at that level, you go to the subconscious. If you are struggling to create change at the level of the subconscious, you need to go in the third layer of the energy, of the energy body. If you're struggling to create change in that level, you need to go down to the fourth, even deeper level.
Yeah, well, so the fourth level so far that I've discovered, and again, I don't know if it's the last, it's just the
Uh,
lowest one that I've discovered so far. I
yeah.
think it might be the lowest one there is because I don't know of any of the other abstractions that humanity has created yet in 5,000 years. And that is the karmic layer. See, I believed in karma. Everyone can easily grasp the idea of karma, but I didn't know that it was a real thing that was impacting my experience until I found the mentor that helped me understand. His name is Edward Mannix. He does a thing called the Compassion Key, and I did the his way of introducing people is something called the Lightworkers Persecution Imprint. He focuses specifically on people like us who have energy gifts and who are awake in this way. And he says, well, for thousands of years, essentially, in the collective of humanity, we've been like killed and beheaded and like, you can't do this and really just shamed and put down because we're weird and, all these things, right? And so his claim, and I'll share why I feel it to be true, but his claim is that this creates a karmic imprint in the collective for all of those of us who have these gifts to not want to share them, right? Because if you historically, for literal lifetimes and years and decades, have been killed for having these magic gifts, why would you want to share them, right? And so he does this thing called the Lightworkers Persecution Imprint. It's a free event or a very cheaply you can basically pay what you want all the way down to $1, anywhere from $1 to $97. You can say what you want to pay. And it's like it can be a 4 hour event. He gives as much as he can, and basically he uses his modality to clear at this level of this karmic imprint of persecution. And so I done all my work. This was, October of 24 that I discovered this. So this is 3 years of being a full-time rainbow magician by now, like helping people, getting clients, having a business, like everything that goes with trying to turn a spiritual gift into something that supports me and thrives inside capitalism. And I just really always have had struggles with money manifestations for whatever reason. Like I can focus on the positive, I can focus on clients coming to me, I can, put out posts, I can do all of that, but I just have always kind of struggled with money being easy. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe there's something I don't know because of the 3 layers I had already discovered. I was like, well, maybe this is always me is like, what can I learn that I don't know yet that might be at a new layer that I haven't seen or might be a new way, right? And so I participated in Edward's work, and his modality is quite simple. It really just boils down to giving yourself compassion for things,
Mm.
self-directed compassion, which was an energy that I had uncovered acceptance and forgiveness. I had uncovered, you know, truth and authenticity, but I hadn't really thought about compassion.
Mm.
And so anyway, long story short, we did the 4 hour event, and in that same week, with very little effort, and this is why I know it's a manifestation. It wasn't because I had a bunch of people who were already interested. It wasn't because I had done like a ton of marketing or a ton of posts or, been on a podcast that week or anything, right? Within a week of doing his event and learning his modality, I had made $9,000 in that same week. And that was the universe. I looked at the universe and I went, "Oh, maybe that's why my money has always been challenging. Maybe that's why it's been a particularly sticky manifestation, right?" So then I did what I always do. I'm literally in the middle of this now. I went all in on, okay, how far down the rabbit hole can I go with Edward? Like, how deep can I learn this compassion key modality? And
Mm.
we just finished level 1. I finished it in like February.
Yeah.
And so the level 2 program starts in November. So this is my fourth layer. So, and to recap, the four layers are conscious thought and awareness that you can try and change with affirmations and etc. But if you have trouble with that, then you want to go down to the subconscious and think about like why do these thoughts keep coming up? What must I believe about myself, others, or the world that has me going around in this circle? Right? And then you work there. And then if you're having trouble with that, like if you're still not really seeing things change to the way that you want, then you check the energy body, the karma, or the at least the chakras and the blocks there and how energy works and your relationship to Gaia and source and all these things. And then if you're still having issues at that level, like I was with money specifically, then you go down to, well, what's at the karmic layer? What, maybe there's a past life. Maybe there's, maybe there's a wound that you took when you were 3 or 4 that you know, compassion key and the karmic layer has basically a process of sitting in and settling in on an emotion and then just letting the subconscious, because the neat thing about the subconscious mind is it is a tape recorder. It's a permanent, perfectly accurate 100% tape recorder that you can say things to it like, when was the very first time I felt this? And it might, if you're honest with yourself, it might take you back to, 2 or 3 years old, or even further. It might take you back to a past life, or, oh, I feel like I'm on a completely different planet. Like I've had past lives come up in other work as, on Arcturus. Like if you want to get really out there about the different alien races that might be in the universe with us and stuff like this. So, I don't know. I'm just always on a lifelong quest to improve life as fast as possible. And I feel like I've unlocked a lot of secrets of effective manifestation that I now help my clients with in my programs to start where they are and then, specifically chakra by chakra, go through the energy body and tune it up.
Yeah.
Like is the root open? Is it working properly? All these things. And then all along the way, their subconscious will become evident to me. It's sort of obvious. If you work with somebody long enough, you can sort of figure out what they believe. And then we also will do belief clearings. And then from there, that changes the top layer of the conscious thought and the actions they take every day, and then their life changes.
Yeah.
It's inevitable, basically.
Yes. So, there's two different questions coming to my mind, and they will take our conversations in different directions. And I'm wondering which one I want to emphasize.
Well,
But let's
maybe
start
we have
with
time for
one.
both.
Yes, maybe we have time for one. Okay, so I guess the first question I'll ask you is about this idea of manifestation. So, like clearly for me, it connects to the metaphor of the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It's like, oh, you have this desire, this thing that you want, and how do I make it happen, make it real for me in my life? And so in that context, we're thinking about manifestation. Um, and the question I'm having is that especially like when you begin to understand life and you begin to understand some of the deeper spiritual perspectives on purpose of our life as humans, as beings that have this kind of a body and who live on this earth. Um, what, and then, we come up with these dreams, these ideas of, like different things that we desire and that we want. Um, but like for me, like one of the things that I've been learning and experiencing is that a lot of times, eh, you know, it's like at one level, to have this kind of pot of gold idea, that you go for, that you work on manifesting, it's very fun and it's very cool to experience when you actually do manifest it.
Mm.
And it makes you want to keep going in terms of, okay, what's the next thing I'm going to manifest that I want to manifest in my life? And so that's really fun and cool. But what I've been learning also is that we can get too caught up in that. In the sense that we can lose perspective on what is the real purpose of our lives. Like, why am I really here? Am I here to chase these various pots of gold one after another? Um, and what's the point of that? And does that align with what my real purpose in life or the purpose of life is? You know what I'm saying?
I do, but it boils down to a really interesting question on philosophy, Samia, because the truth is, right, that light, and this is gonna maybe trigger some folks who don't like the nihilism of it. The truth is that life is meaningless, right? That there is no inherent meaning to anything that happens to us. And I find absolute beauty in that particular knowing, in the sense that if there is no inherent meaning, in other words, everything happens and it just happens, then we get to decide the meaning. Like, for example, to relate a story here, I have a physical handicap. And so, like, a lot of the world would kind of see me and hunched over and having my walker and not walking very well and all these things. And, a lot of people dismiss me, or like, you know, looking at me, put it this way, looking at me, nobody expects anything out of me. It's like, oh, he's handicapped, right? And it's like obvious. But and as a kid and as a teenager, I was very bitter. I was like, this sucks. Why would God do this to me? This is awful. If there is a God, I was, for most of my life, or at least half of my teenage life, I was an atheist. Not only was I an atheist, but I was a very militant one about it. I was like, there's no way there's a God, because there wouldn't be a God that would, if he was a just God and a good God and all these things, he wouldn't do this to me, right? And over my journey of manifesting, I've actually learned to walk and learned to do Spartans and, like, completely reverse all of this. And even sort of back to it now, because I've kind of actually come full circle back around to all my assistive aids again. And now they're just instead of being these, complicated parts of my identity, they're just tools I use to make my life easier. But I also have this deep knowing, now that I'm a rainbow magician, that this specific body is the vessel that has all the special tunings for rainbow magic.
Hmm.
So, meaning in that journey of going from birth to now, the meaning of my handicap has changed probably 6 or 7 different times,
Yeah.
right? And so that's what I mean when I say life is meaningless. I don't mean it in this, like, despair type of nihilism way. I mean, life is not doing anything to you that imposes a meaning. So it's your freedom to put the meaning onto it, right? So meaning, back to kind of answering your question, if you think the meaning of life is to just work on getting your manifestations, then do that to your happiest, and all your lessons will come out in the wash anyway, right? If you think your meaning is to have some big spiritual, like, awakening and help humanity and whatever, do that and you'll come to your happiest, right? It's the challenge is in the Bashar, if you're familiar with him. His formula, the way he says it is, do what brings you your highest excitement with no insistence on the outcome. See, that's the challenge that most humans get all verklempt in is because when we set our minds to something, we begin to form all these emotional attachments to,
Yeah.
well, but I want my manifestation, or I want my goal, or I want this, I want that, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Right, exactly. I mean, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And actually, let's reframe my question in the context of this teaching, because this is a very strong teaching. Also, I think it's the most clearly articulated in Hindu philosophy, at least the way that, I have learned things. I mean, this belief, this teaching is present in other faith traditions as well, and certainly I now see that it's present in the Muslim tradition, Islamic tradition as well. But I first most clearly heard it um, and learned it in the context of learning Hindu philosophy, where they talk about, this idea that, that our duty as humans is to do whatever it is that we need to do or that we are guided to do. Um, but to leave the fruit of our actions in the hands of God, like to not have attachment to the outcome
yeah,
of our action,
yep,
right? And so it's like you do the work, but you don't attach yourself to the results. You leave the results in the hands of God. Whatever results God wants to manifest, God will manifest. And your job is to respond with joy and gratitude to whatever
yeah,
the results are that manifest in your life. And but that's the thing. It's like if we are like, okay, you know what? I have the spot of gold and I want to manifest the spot of gold. That way of thinking, in some ways, it's like you're starting out by focusing on a result. And then in some ways becoming attached to having that result, you know? Or at least that's what I found for myself. Like that's what I found happening to me when I started to get into manifestation and empowering myself to create and manifest a better life for me, is that I got so attached to the results. And when a certain result wouldn't manifest, when I wanted it, when I expected it, when I desired it, then, I would fall into these patterns of doubting myself, or doubting if manifestation works, or doubting, is God even there? All of that.
right. No, absolutely. I'm 100% with you because I think it's actually developmental, my friend. In other words, I think when we start first learning to wield, if you will, the manifestation machinery of the universe, the first thing you're going to do is like, okay, I can set my mind to things. I can do this. I can focus on an outcome and I can close the gap and I can have the outcome happen,
Yes.
right? Pretty much everybody who's tried to manifest anything with any level of success at all has had that occur where it's like it flows and it feels easy and there's synchronicity and etc. Right? And then you set your mind on the next thing. You try to do it again, and maybe you have more attachments in here, and maybe they, in other words, maybe the energy is a little more complicated in ways that you can't see, or something like this, right?
Yeah.
And in my experience, the antidote for this is essentially, and this is in Ken Stone's work. He talks about, a lot about it in his development of consciousness, right? The first stage is kind of like the victim, like where you believe that life is something that just happens to you. Like, oh, like I was born with my handicap. It just happened. I had no, all this stuff. And then stage two is kind of like when you kind of unlock these pieces of manifestation and you're like, oh, I can direct it. I'm in charge. I'm no longer a victim. I'm creating my reality, right? This
Yeah.
is stage two. And the limits of stage two are divine things like divine timing and divine, and so he talks about this idea of stage three, which is just basically fully surrendered, right? Where the antidote, the way out of the situation you're describing, Samia, is faith, is trust in the forces of God, is knowing that God is actually real and is doing something on your behalf, even if the divine timing looks a little different than maybe what you would prefer,
Yeah.
right? And so there is that layer of kind of awareness of coming to that faith of having, faith in something larger than self, and of being able to recognize and notice where you do have an attachment. Like, oh, I'm attached to this outcome happening now or today or soon or, whenever, or I'm attached to it happening this particular way. One of the things that I learned from Ken that was amazing, because I just thought attachment was attachment. Turns out we have two kinds. We have outcome attachment and we have process attachment. So
Mm.
meaning we're often attached to how we get the thing that we say that we want, which is also not great. And in the form of money, the easiest way to illustrate this, right? Like I could receive a check in my mailbox. Like God is totally capable of putting a random check in my mailbox anytime he wants. But
Yeah.
I don't typically believe that that's something that's often happens, right? Like I know already that I have attachments to that process not being how the process of how I make money. And
Yeah.
so because I have attachments to my money coming in a different process, then God cannot put checks in my mailbox at random. Like
Yeah. Yeah, this one, this particular thing I've also experienced in my life where when I was going through one of my spiritual moments of insight, one of the insights that I had was that um that God has given me unlimited access to the abundance of the universe. And not just me, all of us, by the way, but in that moment, I was trying to
yes, of
figure
course.
things out for me. So, and the vision that I saw was that I was like in this garden with a river flowing, and it was like so abundant. And whatever I needed, I could reach out and just take and
Mm,
use. And
right,
would replenish itself. It like nothing was reduced because I took and used what I needed and wanted whenever I needed and wanted it. Um, and so it was like source telling me this is how it's going to work for you. Whatever you need, whatever you want, whenever you need and want it, all you have to do is reach out and take, because it's all here for you. It's all here
right,
for you already. It doesn't have to come to you. You don't have to find it. It's already all there. And
right.
um, on the one hand, that was like such a beautiful vision and idea. But on the other hand, when in my, let's say, moments of normal consciousness, ego consciousness, when I was like, okay, I want this or I want that. And then how do I actually reach out and get it? Where is it? I don't see it like with my physical eyes.
Right. Right.
Um, and so there was this sense of like wanting to like process attachment, like you were saying. That's when I began to realize this process attachment thing. Because what I started noticing was that I do actually have everything I need in my life. And when I want something like, I wanted to sign up for a program with a mentor, and it was going to cost like 15 or no, it was actually even more than $15,000. And I was like, well, in my bank account right now, I don't have $15,000.
Mm.
And there was like thoughts in my head about how I could get those $15,000. But actually the way I got it was literally somebody just gave me that money. There were
Mm.
it was like, and it was not for work that I did. It was not I didn't even ask them for it. They were like, "Oh, here you go, Samia."
Well, right, and
Yep.
that does also go to a almost a deeper level of the process attachment, right? Because
Yeah.
money is so oftentimes when we think about abundance and in a capitalist society, like money is the number one way that we think we can get things.
Yeah.
But Bashar defines abundance, which I really like, as the ability to do what you need to do when you need to do it,
Yeah.
right? And so in your example of the course,
Yeah.
yeah, in this case, somebody gifted you the money, but they could easily have just as easily have gifted you a spot in the course. Like if you
Yeah.
knew the course creator
Exactly.
and like you could have said, hey, I really want to take the course, but I don't have the
Yeah.
money, whatever. And she could have said, oh, well, here, and you could have had a free spot in the course, right? There's lots of ways that our abundance can come to us. And I think by thinking that we are limited to only a, capitalist society of exchange of money is even another form of process attachment.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So, you know, all of this, and you're right. I mean, it's just it's like when somebody, like I think what I've been realizing in my life is that we have been, as modern humans, so trained to focus on money as a symbol of abundance, and not just a symbol of abundance, but it's like if you don't have the money like sitting in your bank account, sitting in your hand, you feel poor. Like that's the mindset we have been so deeply trained into
Yep.
that um even that we are willing to ignore like all of the abundance that we have access to, that we are blessed with, that we are utilizing every single day of our lives, and just keep on feeling poor. And and I was thinking about this, that, maybe one of the reasons many of us light workers particularly continue for a while to struggle with manifesting money in our lives in terms of having it sitting there in our bank accounts in large amounts and so forth is because the universe is trying to teach us. It's trying to teach us to disconnect from this false belief that having money in our bank account is what equals abundance,
Is the only form of
or is
abundance
the
we
only form of
yeah,
abundance. Yeah.
yeah.
You know?
Well, and I do think that's probably true, right? Because who would have to learn it other than us? Because I mean, especially depending on your belief systems and how you think the world is currently going. I don't know about you, but it looks like a lot of the old systems are starting to fall apart a little bit,
Yeah.
right? And if this system in particular also starts to crumble,
Yeah.
then there will be a new economy that comes out of, I don't know, energy maybe or something like this, right? Like I don't know what the next layers and levels are going to be, but I do feel like being prepared, like I'm being prepared to take my place in that new world,
Yeah.
right? And this gets back to what we were talking about earlier of the divine plan, right? Yes, I've been a student of manifestation. I've gotten a lot of the things that I've set my mind on in life. Like I've figured out a lot of how to do that. And I never in a million years thought I would be a rainbow magician. I was not 5 years old going, I'm going to be a rainbow magician and teach people the secrets of manifestation. And, so meaning me being the rainbow magician that I am was on God's plan, not mine,
That's
right? And so there is in my experience, in my lived experience, there is a divine plan. There
Yeah.
is a, track that I'm on per God,
Yeah.
right? And that track tends to happen, big surprise, whether I get what I want or not. Like when I'm down here, poking around in the clay and like trying to figure out my little money and my little clients and my little whatever, God is doing his plan and that's what's really happening here.
Yes. And what you just made me think about also is that, all of these systems that we have become so used to and we now take for granted that are now breaking down, including how money works. There is like, I think, of course, when the systems break down, it creates a lot of chaos. And for a lot of people, that translates into various kinds of suffering and pain. But really, if you think about like, for example, how much harm the capitalist system that grips us now has created and continues to create. I mean, if and when it breaks down, God willing, that will be a very good thing.
Well, right. And I
And
mean, this is
yeah, we replace it with something much better, more grounded in compassion.
this is what it boils down to is how do you create all of these systems
Yeah,
that, in ways that doesn't cause this much harm,
yeah,
right? Or
yeah.
essentially, we have been creating out of alignment with nature and truth, and now it's time to start creating in alignment with nature and truth
Yeah.
is another way to look at it, right?
And it's so amazing, I think, that, when you talk about the fourth layer of healing, that the key to that healing is compassion. Because, oh my gosh, that truly is the key
Yeah.
to healing, and
Passion
not just at an
for
intense
yourself
level. Yeah.
and for your fellow man and for yeah, like,
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Oh my gosh. Oh man, I could keep talking to you for hours and hours, and I'm realizing, oh my gosh, we need to wrap
yeah,
up.
we actually are 5 minutes over. Hey, I thought we would wrap on the hour, but we did go over 5 minutes. Okay, so it is time to wrap this podcast. But
Yeah, I think we'll just have to bring you back so we can talk about more of, just so you know, the next question or the second question that I was having that I wanted to really ask you is, we were talking about how if you're experiencing trouble creating change at like the conscious level, you go to the subconscious level. If you're, so basically going down deeper layers.
mhm.
Does it, the question I was having is, in your experience and based on what you're learning, um, I mean, I'm imagining it doesn't always have, it's not always like such a straight line, or does
Oh,
it?
it's not a straight line at
Right.
all. So yeah,
Yeah.
no, no. My sessions, especially now, are guided by strong intuition. Essentially, the way I say it is God taps me on the shoulder and tells me what layer to look at. And
Yeah.
then I look at it and I do some work there and then I go to the next one. And so,
Yeah.
so yes, sometimes it is all the way down so that we can find the karma at the bottom. But then oftentimes it looks more like this. Like we're because just like the emotional scale, right?
Mm,
Like, Lester Levinson, the creator of the Sedona method and the emotional scale, he basically had a really compacting experience that shot him all the way up into peace and love, and he just kind of stayed there. But
mm,
for most humans, that's not the experience, right? You
yeah.
end up bouncing all over the
Yeah.
wheel,
Yeah.
right? And so it's the same with the healing layers in my experience is that it's just a threading journey of, oh, now I'm in somebody's subconscious because I've discovered this crappy belief that they've that they've held on to for so long. And now I'm at their, 4-year-old self, and we're giving compassion for something that happened with their mother, and we're clearing a karmic imprint. And now I'm like looking at their heart chakra, and it looks like it's closed, and I should really get it open a little bit, And so
Yes.
a rainbow magic session these days is like a wild ride through all 4 of the layers in whatever order God thinks is most appropriate.
Yes. Yeah, so when we talk about that and we think about that, that has implications that I want to dig deeper into, and we don't have time today, so I'm going to invite you to
Right.
come
So
back.
we'll come back for more of that for episode 2 with me, huh?
Exactly, exactly. So this is
Sounds
just
good.
so for our listeners to know that that's the direction I'm thinking we'll head into for our second episode. Thanks so much,
Sounds
Aubin.
great, my friend, and it was such a pleasure to be with you this hour, and I'm looking forward to more. Have a great rest of your evening, and I will talk to you soon.
Yes, thank you. And for my last reminder to our audience, I just will remind you to please make sure you check the show notes because we will be dropping Aubin's links there so you can connect with him and get the help and support you need whenever you're ready for it. And until we connect next time, I just wish you lots and lots of peace and joy.